It's unlabeled, but I have shown it to a lot of people, and we've all looked at it, we've all agreed it's Schiaparelli.
Hello and welcome back to My Tech Wardrobe. My name is Caitlin and it's been a while. I took a couple of weeks off for the holidays to sort of rest and relax, and I hope you were able to do so as well. Have you ever been to a fashion history museum? Not a fashion exhibit, an entire history museum focused on fashion. I can very fortunately say that I have a small fashion history museum in the region in which I live. My friend Rachel, the owner of Auburn Vintage, the clothing store that I have featured in quite a few of my videos now, is now working in collaboration with the Fashion History Museum in Cambridge on some outreach and invited me for a full tour and behind the scenes look at the museum. I know. So I visited the museum just prior to Christmas, and this is a vlog of the day, aka the best day ever, spoiler alert. The Fashion History Museum in Cambridge houses a truly astonishing collection of beautiful garments through hundreds of years of the world's history. There's a lot to see, and I can't wait for you to see it. Stay tuned for stories about exploding petticoats, dresses that look like they walked straight out of Jane Austen, and many more. Like my new do, I have started to use curlers in my hair. My makeup is almost done. I don't have lipstick on, but I'm almost there. Can you hear the wind outside, by the way? It's extremely windy today. So I guess what's the point of doing my hair when it'll just be floofed out anyway, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try. And I know before anyone says anything, I know this is not the correct way to wear rollers. Even probably aggressively bad and aggressively the wrong way, but works for me, and I'm too lazy to do it the normal way because I have too much hair. So I admire those of you who can do it right, but I will forever be doing it wrong. It might not be super easy to pick up on camera, but this is basically how the curlers turn out. I really only want to curl the ends and make them a little floofy. So I think I've done that. Basically all I do when I take the curlers out is just brush it out very lightly so that all the strands kind of come together, and then I hairspray it. So it pretty much stays not as voluminous as this all day, but pretty good. So this is the full outfit minus the shoes. Gone for a very wide legged jean here that's very sky-high waisted, and a belt from Auburn Vintage actually, so I think that's a nice touch. I've got this shirt here which is old. I think it's a Forever 21 bought in high school kind of number, but I bought it because it had a very vintage sort of silhouette. So it's a crop top, goes right into the top of the sky-high pants. This is the Mejuri dome ring, and this is just a little ring that my aunt gave me when I was very young because she didn't want it. And then I've got some more gold jewelry on this hand. Golden brown kind of day. Not exactly what I usually go for, but wanted to have a bit more of a vintage vibe than usual. I didn't want to dress up too much, so here we are. Bye. Oh! Okay, I'll see you later. The museum is housed inside a former post office, and it's been renovated and updated, which looks really cool. And the beginning of the exhibits are textile based, so you can learn about different materials and how they go into your clothes. But there is a 300 years of fashion main exhibition. Jonathan, the curator, gave us a phenomenal in-depth 20-minute tour on all of the dresses in the collection, but I have reduced it to the sort of archetypal dresses of each era here and gone over the highlights, or else this video would be way too long. But please do check out the website for more information because the detail was phenomenal.
There are larger dresses from this period as well, but a lot of times the stuff that gets saved is the stuff that you're going to get into again someday, you know? It's that inspiration garment that I'm going to fit into again someday. Plus, also a lot of these dresses in the 18th century were kept because they were considered they were remade, and very often the bodices were picked apart, the skirts were picked apart, and then the fabric was stored flat, and then 50, 60, 70 years later, they were remade into a dress again. So it's kind of the idea of wearing grandma's wedding dress.
Right.
Because the fabric was so expensive, and the actual construction of the garments was actually fairly simple. So you could remake without doing a lot of cutting, and that was the whole point, because the investment was in the fabric. And these three pieces are from the three parts of the 18th century. The first part is the embroidered petticoat with the bodice, which is called jumps. It's essentially an early corset, and it kind of keeps you in place. It's not doing a true corset's job. It's a comfortable corset. It's like a sports bra, right? It's sort of doing what it has to do without doing any sort of, without making it difficult. So that's what you wear around the house all day long. If it was cold, you'd put a jacket over it, like a cargo jacket or something like that, or a shawl. But when you went out, you then dressed. And when you dressed, it was according to your station in life, how well dressed you got. The dress in the middle is from about 1765. This is an evening dress, probably, could be, not really, it's not a court dress, but it is a formal gown. And this is something you would wear for a formal occasion. Actually, all of these first two garments are English. And the first garment, while it's embroidered and quilted, this one is made from a woven fabric. It's a brocaded silk taffeta. So this one has been a manufactured decoration rather than a homemade decoration like the first one, which is embroidered or quilted by hand. But these are the green and blue plaid American dress, again using French fabric. That one is from about 1810 or 12, somewhere in there. The sleeves seem long, but you kind of scrunch them up on your arms, and that's what gives you the give. So when you bend your arms, you're not ripping the dress. Right. You've got that extra
Elbows
fabric.
out.
Elbow room. Then we get into the Victorian period. And this is again a gradual, this is all very much evolutionary in fashion. It's not, there's no revolution in style happening throughout here. It's just one thing sort of gradually morphs into the next as we go from year to year. And the wider the skirt, the narrower the waist appears. And that's what you have with this paisley printed wool dress of the 1840s. The fullness of the skirt there is being held out by 8 starched petticoats. 8? 8 in total. And this is what a lot of the first rational dress was opposed to, was the weight of the skirts. So Amelia Bloomer, for example, who came up with the idea of wearing trousers, what she was opposed to was not the size of the skirt, it was the weight of the skirt, the fact that it weighed you down. It was exhausting to wear these. So they solved that problem in the 1850s by creating a crinoline. And crinoline is actually a name for a horsehair. So the first crinolines were actually made of woven horsehair, which is very stiff. But eventually they created also a metal hoop crinoline. And that created the exact same skirt shape using only one petticoat and the crinoline underneath it. So this is a savior. It's considered a blessing. It's a wonderful thing. And actually Amelia Bloomer kind of loses her following at that point because now suddenly the dresses are light as a feather. You can, easy to walk around and that kind of thing. This is also the period when you begin to see women taking up sports. So croquet, lawn tennis, things like that all begins to happen in this period. There is, however, a downside to this. First of all, the crinoline tends to get bigger and bigger, as we see in the 1860s. So it becomes a hazard. And this causes a lot of problems with women bumping into tables and knocking over lamps and candles or brushing up against an iron fender. And there's a lot of what's called hearth death, as the dress is going up in flames from catching fire. And the reason why it's a problem now is because of the draft that is created by having the wire hoops. So now suddenly the air can get at the fire, whereas if you dropped a candle in your skirt in the 1840s, there was 8 petticoats to smother it out, so you could sort of bash it up before you went anywhere. But by the time you get to the 1860s, though, this is an issue. And they're making lighter materials, and also there's a new cleaning process that uses naphtha or white gas to clean it, which is an accelerant. So you got all these things together, and you have a dangerous dress. And it really is a large reason why the large crinoline kind of falls out of favor. And then our last, in this period, the late Edwardian, is a pink wool dress from 1911 with her huge hat. And this is a beginning of the shift in the silhouette from all of the attention being on the figure going up towards the top of the figure. So it's now more attention on the face and the hair and the hat. All you're looking up rather than sort of at the figure, you're looking up at the head instead.
Is this the sort of Gibson girl?
Yeah, that's even these last three all have that kind of big full hairstyle. But probably the biggest is right around this period. And you need it to hold the hats up. They're absolutely massive. There's a practical element to fashion now. This particular suit has a lot of Egyptian motifs on it, which were particularly popular after the discovery of King Tut's tomb in November of 1922. On the higher end of fashion is this silk evening gown from about 1935. It's unlabeled, but I have shown it to a lot of people, and we've all looked at it, we've all agreed it's Schiaparelli. And it's got this very unusual treatment on the sleeves. It's definitely French. You can tell by looking at how clothes are made that it's a French construction. And very often women would remove the labels when they were traveling, because otherwise if they got caught at the border or customs, they'd have to pay duty on what they had purchased. So a lot of them would take the labels out when they traveled.
Wow, not much has changed.
Well, you want a deal, you don't want to pay more than you have to.
Yeah.
Long silver dress. It's silver and gray damask with Aurora Borealis sequins on it. From about 1954 or 55, and it's by Simonetta. She was an Italian couturier out of Rome, and she ended up marrying her biggest rival, Fabiani. And they moved to Paris for a while and had a business for about 6 years, and then they went back to Rome, and I think she actually gave up dressmaking at that point. But she was really important in the late 40s and 50s for the Italian fashion industry, which was having kind of a renaissance, miracle. The whole Italian fashion kind of came into its own just after the Second World War. And she was one of the leading designers of it. It's actually a strapless dress that you take the jacket off, and the strapless evening gown underneath that. The next outfit is streetwear, and it's separates. And this is where fashion really begin to take off in the separates world, is in the 80s. So we have the shoes are by Norma Kamali. They're all New York designers. The shoes are by Norma Kamali. The harem trousers are by Willie Ware, and the red jacket is by Bern Conrad. And he was known for his silks, so it's a silk jacket. And this whole idea of mixing and matching different periods, and even if you went, if you saw a dress or an outfit in the windows of Bergdorf Goodman's or Holt Renfrew or something like that, you didn't repeat that. You had to do your own styling. So this is kind of what you do, is you're taking different styles, putting them together and creating your own look, and that's what separates are great about. Mm-hmm. Suit from the mid-90s by Yves Saint Laurent, and typical of, I always think of Clueless when I look at it because of Alicia Silverstone, wearing the exact same type of thing, essentially nowadays. So that's 300 years of fashion in, how many is that, 40 garments? Wow. 37?
What a whirlwind.
Well, it's a small museum, so we wanted to try and pick pertinent examples that really sort of said a lot. And there's more stories about this too if you read the labels. There's the longer version. I think that was the 20-minute tour, but there's a longer version too.
And once the tour was over, we got a very special backstage look at all of the archives in the basement.
So that was the Victorian shoes over there. This is all 20s, 30s, 40s in here. And parasols are at the back.
What?
And then this is 50s, 60s, 70s. In here.
These are hundreds of additional pieces of shoes and accessories and other dresses and garments, and you can really tell the care that goes into curating every piece at this museum. It almost felt like being a night at the museum down there. I was just waiting for the hats to sort of come alive out of their hat boxes, and I had a few moments where I really just couldn't believe that this was how I got to spend my day. I think what's really special about going to a museum like this is understanding the care and craftsmanship that went into every single piece. Because it's not like fashion today where you buy a piece and maybe it'll sit in your wardrobe for a while and maybe you won't even wear it at all. Back in the day, these pieces were worn and taken care of so meticulously, and also created very meticulously as well. When I walked around the museum, I felt like I wasn't just looking at pieces of fashion, I was looking at art. And I think if you are someone who genuinely appreciates cut and color and texture, this is really, really cool. And I did try my hand at fitting in with the mannequins as far as I could. And you know what? I actually think I did a pretty impressive job.
Did you know I can't dance?
Look at the eyes. Fun fact, I've always wanted a monocle,
But have never actually gotten one. Oh, I think this is a good look for you, Caitlin, right here.
I mean, I'm into it.
Beekeeper / aviator.
I love that back in the day, people were just way more adventurous with headgear. Headgear and eyewear. Look at this. If I could wear a top hat and not be known as like that girl, then I would. This is so much fun. I'm going to really try not to do too much more vintage shopping through the end of the year, because we all saw my everything I bought in 2021 video, which was an astonishing amount of clothes. But coming here kind of makes you want to buy everything from everywhere. After our behind the scenes tour, Rachel and I checked out the vintage book and jewelry sale, because you never know when you're gonna find some very special vintage treasures. It doesn't always have to be at a vintage store or a thrift store. Sometimes museums will have this kind of thing too. If these weren't clearly prescription, I would buy them in a minute. Hello. My neck is too small. Why is my neck too small? Ugh. I was sent something by a brand similar to this, but it's a modern brand.
Oh my.
They're making these snake chains.
See, it's vintage coming back again.
Oh yeah, everything comes back around. There were books everywhere, on every surface of this room, and they were catalogs and sewing patterns and make and mend for victory books from the Second World War. There were vintage Vogues from tons of different eras, many of which I pretended to take home with me. And of course, I had to take some actual books home with me, which you'll see in a minute. Rachel and I had a really, really fantastic time at the museum, even though we got slightly windblown on the way home. What a day! Well, that was fun. I think my favorite gown, though, in the entire collection was probably the long silver, almost brocade evening gown, which had the removable shawl or sort of top. I just think that is a gown suited for a princess, and it's so beautiful. I wanted to wear it and I wanted to try it on. I just love those big voluminous pieces because I think they're just so fun. And the 1920s gown was pretty cool too. And the one that would make me look like Marmee from Little Women. And the one that makes me look like Elizabeth Bennet a little bit, or a Bronte sister. I guess what I'm trying to say is they're all my favorite. I want to show you a couple of the books that I picked up while I was at the museum at the book and jewelry sale, because I think they're pretty cool. I could have gone home with maybe like 1,800 more, but I was trying to be reasonable today. The first is this one, Great War Fashion by Lucy Adlington. Tales from the History Wardrobe. Now this I thought was really interesting because I don't know a lot about women's fashion during the Great War or the First World War. When I was doing both of my history degrees, they both were in sort of Canadian military history in and around the First World War. So I know a lot about military history during the First World War, but I don't know a lot about fashion history. And this is essentially an illustrated history. So it's got a lot of really fun images to work from, and I think there's a lot to learn because this is not only just women's wartime fashion, that is, you know, utility fashion if they had a profession. So if they were filling in the workforce while men were away on the front, but this is also women in strategic roles, so nurses, ambulance drivers, sometimes surgeons' assistants. There's a lot going on during the First World War that I don't know about really from a fashion perspective. So very excited to dig into this one. And then the second, the cover drew my eye immediately, which is why I got it. And I think this is just a very interesting concept for a very small book. It's how to draw and paint fashions. So essentially, it gives you anatomical drawings, but also how to draw it and how to draw action and sort of the twists and turns of the body while someone would be modeling, in addition to types of dresses and clothes. I just think it was really cool because one of the things that I really like is illustrated historical fashion plate drawings. I really think they're beautiful, and I just recently got back into watercolor painting. It's just sort of a fun medium. So I picked this up to practice a little bit more my human painting abilities because I am not good at painting humans at all. I can do flowers and some shapes, and that's about it. So hopefully this will help. So big thank you to Rachel from Auburn for contacting me about this really fun day. Big thank you as well to everyone at the Fashion History Museum. I had such a great time exploring the museum today and getting to know these beautiful garments from our collective past. And let me tell you, they are even more beautiful in person. So if you happen to be traveling to Ontario at some point in the near future, or if you're just interested in the museum, I will leave all of their links below so you can take a look at their virtual exhibits, but also hopefully come into the museum at some point yourself and see the beautiful fashion with your own two eyeballs. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, consider subscribing. And if you didn't like it, subscribe anyway, because it might be different next time. I'm very tired now, so I'm going to drink some tea, switch my high-waisted pants for PJs and chill. Anyway, bye!